back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
Far away in another country. Far away in another country.
Used to be a Rod Stewart specialty. He always sings about a long, faraway land, doesn't he? Thanks for picking that song, Dwayne. And we're talking about immigration law. Gordon Maynard and Rudy Kisher are here from MKS Law with new digs in downtown Vancouver at Hastings and Granville, right?
Right, yeah, 688 Hastings, right at the corner, right next to the Burke's building.
A little more room, a few more associates. Things are good.
Things are busy in immigration.
All right, and because of possible changes, now, Gordon, I'll get you to sort of paraphrase or explain how we got this this email about all these points that possibly are changing.
There was an MP who organized a town hall meeting in the Toronto riding of Don Valley. The minister was intending to show up, Minister of Immigration and Refugee Citizenship Canada, Mr. McCallum. He couldn't make it. His chief of staff went, and somebody in the audience took notes about the discussions in which he went through a number of issues that they were going to be looking at as the minister's office responsible for immigration policy. And this got circulated around widely. It's not a verbatim list. Who knows all the details? We don't have all the details, but it's an interesting piece for discussion.
It's a glimpse into what could be coming, right?
Exactly.
All right, so the next one is TRVs. What are TRVs?
TRVs are temporary resident visas. If you're an American or if you're a European and you want to come to Canada, you hop on a plane, except for having to get an ETA, but we won't get into that. You hop on a plane and you come here. That's the way it's been. But there's a number of countries of the world where the nationals cannot simply hop on a plane. They have to be vetted through a temporary resident visa process. And this means actually applying to the visa office. Nowadays, it's the Internet Visa Office in the sky, and asking for permission to hop on a plane and come to Canada and enter just as a visitor. And a number of these applications, probably more than should be, are turned down. And they're turned down because we have a regulation that says that a genuine visitor to Canada is somebody who will not overstay their status. Temporary residents, visitors, are always coming to Canada for a temporary purpose. You're going to come in and then you're going to leave. And typically when you're stamped in, you're told under the law you have 6 months in Canada at max. You're supposed to leave at the end of the 6 months. If a visa officer thinks that you're not going to be a genuine visitor, if they think that you're not going to leave Canada before your status expires, then they can refuse you the visa. You don't have to be inadmissible in any way. I don't believe you're going to be a genuine visitor. And there's been a lot of complaints about this. We see many, many applications where persons have been refused. And
Could you give me a quick example of why somebody would be coming here with a definite exit date? Like what would their...
So they're coming to visit, for example, parents are coming in for 4 weeks to see their new grandchild, right? They live in China. Their grandchild was born in Canada to Canadian parents that are living here now, and they want to come in for 4 weeks and go back to China. Right?
Business purposes, vacations, seeing relatives. There's lots of reasons why people
pretty
come
benign
to
stuff, really.
Yeah, but the problem is the officer looks at it, and if you're from a country that is a visa-requiring country, if you're not wealthy, right, you don't have a history of international travel, the chance of you getting refused is pretty high. Right? They're going to look at it and they're going to say, wow, you've never been outside of China? You worked as a farmer? Yeah, we're not going to let you in. That's it. Boom. We don't believe you're a genuine visitor.
You're single. You don't have a spouse and kids to draw you back home.
So the worry is you come and you don't leave. Is that really what it is? Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
You're not going to leave. So what do you think they're going to do? Or what are they...
Well, the suggestion here is that as long as you pass your biometrics and your security, they should give you a TRV. I don't believe you return to Canada refusals cut to a minimum, is what they say.
So you think this is good or bad?
Depends what they mean by to a minimum.
Right.
All right. I think it's good. I mean, I see cases that are terrible refusals. There's no good reason for saying no to the individual. Why did they say no? I get the feeling it's just to keep the numbers down. So those kinds of refusals I don't like. But other times you're going to have people in front of you where you do have a legitimate concern just based on their general parameters.
Well, you would also have in another layer that we're hoping that is there, which is the security layer, right? Yeah. So you have countries where, there's being terrorist activity. Someone wants to come here to visit, and you say, well, maybe we'll leave you there and you don't come to Canada.
But that's not the major. I mean, here they're saying if they pass the security concern, but that's not the major reason for the refusals. I mean, what you have to understand is, lots of people would love to come to Canada, right? They want to come to visit. Do we know these people are we have a very generous refugee system, right? That's accessible.
And all you have to do is say I'm a refugee, right?
Well, you have to make the claim. And if you make the claim, you stay here for a time period while that's processed. So, that's part of the backdrop as to why you have these high refusals. So it'll be interesting to see how this is passed down, I think, to the front line and how it's interpreted, right? Because I can't imagine, we don't know what the minister's thinking on this. I can't imagine they're opening the door and saying anybody who can show a return ticket is going to be allowed to get to a visa and come to Canada for visiting purposes, even though they don't show the money, they don't have the background, etc. So I think this will be a hard one to turn around. It may be easy to say, but how do you do that without having the problem, which is always the fear, is that people will overstay?
If they're saying let's get rid of the bad decisions about not being allowed to have a visa, then I'm all in favor of it. It all depends what they mean by the I don't believe you'll return to Canada refusals cut to a minimum.
Now, what is this next one? CBSA officers will no longer be rewarded for refusing and deporting more people. So there's a reward?
There's a target. It's
really
horrible. So Canada is the only country in the world that has a policy of enforcing this cessation rules on successful refugee claimants that are now Canadian permanent residents and going back and kicking them out of Canada. The Conservatives started this, and it was shocking when we started seeing it. So people, you can imagine someone comes to Canada, makes a refugee claim, goes through the process, is vetted, is deemed to be a refugee. You have a good reason to flee from Syria. You're a Christian and, ISIL might kill you. Okay, let's say for an example. We believe you're a refugee. We're going to let you into Canada, right? So they let him into Canada. He applies for permanent resident, becomes a permanent resident. His kids are in school. He's got a wife. Their life is here for 3 or 4 years. Things have changed a little bit maybe in Syria. His mother dies. And he knows he's going to go back for 2 weeks or a week to go to the funeral, say hello to a brother. This is 5 or 6 years later. He comes back. Now they've seen that he's been to Syria, and they're saying, well, you are a refugee. You went back to the country you fled to. We don't believe you need to be in Canada anymore, and we're going to deport you. So we're going to start a proceeding to say that you actually no longer need our protection, despite the fact that you've needed it for the last 5 or 6 years, have a business, hire Canadians, your kids are in school here, and we're going to deport you back. And then so this process started 3 or 4 years ago, and I have a case like this, and there's a lot of work been done to try and challenge these decisions. And what we found through our access to information is the department, the CBSA that was doing this, had a target. So we want you to remove 10,000 people like this every year.
So is that through freedom of information?
Yeah, so the Freedom Act for Information. So we found out that the government actually had a target. So every CBSA officer was given saying, your department, we expect you to remove 5,000, 10,000 people like this. And they had to go looking for these people. So even if the case seemed ridiculously weak, it didn't matter. They were starting the process.
So that example you had, is that a real case?
I've got cases very similar to that. Very, very, very. I've got lots of cases very similar. I've heard of lots of cases, and my case is very similar to that case. A different country, right? And going back for sure. It's absolutely horrifying.
And it's not just, those are called cessation claims or processes to take away the refugee protection and cause the person to be removed. But generally, in the past 9 years, there has been an enforcement mentality that has been promoted, and we see record numbers of detentions and record numbers of refusals, or of removals, I should say. Whether they're removals for overstay, simple things like that, there's an attitude that enforcement is key, all right? When you have a chance, go after it.
So cases, I can give you an example, a case of an American guy up here, children with a Canadian ex-wife, overstayed his visa. So he was in Canada, not working, visiting his kids, overstayed 6 months. They deported him, barred him from Canada for a year. Right?
So he won't see his kids in Canada?
Well, he won't. They have to travel across to Blaine all the time. So the wife who's working as a nurse now, and they're separated, so it's the ex-wife, has to find time so he can see his kids, and so the parents can have a relationship with their father, who's not a criminal, has merely overstayed, has to somehow find time on her weekend to get the kids that are young kids across the border, over into Blaine to go see their father.
So there were options. They didn't have to get the removal order.
All right, we're talking about possible changes to immigration. When we return, we'll pick it up with Gordon Maynard and Rudy Kisher from MKS Law, immigration lawyers, next on CL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CL 650.